So, ladies, how are you today? I'm Tina Hull. For those that don't know me and aren't in my group, and maybe I'm new to you. So, I have a group called Align to Your Health. If you want to join, you're welcome to message me and I'll let you in on that. So, today, though, the conversation is about narcissism. And either you're in the relationship, you've been out of the relationship, or out of the relationship for a long time. So I would really love it if you put in the chat which one you are, and that will really help me kind of hone a bit of the conversation that we're having. Any questions, you can put a Q in it unless you want to unmute yourself and come on camera. Just be aware that this will probably be going up on YouTube. So, I understand there's privacy issues, and if you're not sure, then it's probably best to put it in the chat, and then I won't address your name specifically. I'll just ask the question, read it, and then I'll answer as best I can. So I do not profess to be an expert on narcissism other than my life experience. And so 23 years of marriage, and the last 6 I've been separated, and the last year and a half I've been divorced. And we're just finishing our court case now for the separation of land. And he's accused me of stealing and hiding money throughout our marriage and all sorts of things. It's not been fun. It's been actually very nasty and very hurtful. And unfortunately, my girls have a tendency to believe what he says. So it's driven a deeper wedge between us, and it's not been easy. Now, the good news is because of the tools that I have, I'm able to process and move through these things a little bit faster than the average person. And it's interesting because if you're in any kind of personal development programming or course, or you're just, for your own self, we have a tendency to want to stay in the good feelings. And I found myself doing that. And I had to really check in, because although I can process my feelings pretty quickly, I was in some kind of denial of dealing with it, especially after the first week of court. And I found myself wanting to get back to the happy feeling thoughts. And so in that, though, there was this push-pull energy. And if you feel that, it's because of that push-pull energy. And it's because you're denying yourself what your soul actually wants and feels. So I really encourage you to allow yourself to feel the feelings. I probably have cried in the last year and a half more than I have in my lifetime. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a great release. It actually is healthier than to bottle it up and keep it suppressed. And I encourage it highly. So I really want you to be aware of these things, because what they call spiritual bypass often. So because we are more personally developed and possibly more spiritually developed and connected, we have a tendency to think that, we don't need to go through these things because, we're in that position, and it makes us look bad, or it makes us look weak, or it makes us look a certain way, especially if we have a business and we're an entrepreneur and we're talking to other people about these things. And I call bullshit. That's what spiritual bypassing is. So we really want to allow ourselves to feel the feelings. And as soon as I allowed myself to start to feel them, then there was no push-pull energy in my physical body. I felt more calm and more relaxed. I felt more at peace, and I just allowed myself. And it wasn't anything major. There was a few tears because there's a lot of changes that are going to be coming through for the next little while. There was there my proximity to the girls is going to change because we live in the same building right now where I'm going to be leaving the family home. So a lot of change, and it's okay for me not to be able to process it all in one day or the weekend. And gratefully, with some tools that I use and clearing some of the energy, I was able to actually process it pretty quickly. And I was sharing that with a friend last night, and she was saying to me, Tina, I mean, most people it takes like weeks, if not years. So it's not, you know, be easy on yourself, have some compassion. So I did, and that's my lesson for you for this experience. Just have compassion with yourself. It is not an easy situation because at the end of the day, we've been emotionally and mentally abused, and some have also been physically and maybe even sexually abused through the relationship. And I give you and send you so much compassion and love. It's hard and it's very challenging. So I'm here for you. So I will open up the floor for you to ask questions. If you aren't comfortable coming on camera because of privacy issues, then leave the question in the um, chat box, but also be aware that they can't see the chat, so they won't see who's asking the question. But if this video will be going up on YouTube for me to then send to those that said yes and just couldn't make it today. So any questions? Bring it on down. I'm just leaving a long relationship. Yeah. And how are you feeling after the relationship? What's the sense about it all? And kudos to you. I really want to give all of us who have left a lot of credit because it takes courage, it takes bravery. And honestly, my ex is the one who instigated the situation. He was extremely insulting and rude and vile and hateful. And if he hadn't done that and pushed me, I probably still would be with him. So I know it doesn't look great right now. And I'm telling you, it is the best thing that ever happened for you. It doesn't feel like it right now, probably, but it really is. Being away from the narcissist is is so much better. You will be happy, healthy, and thrive again. I promise you that. Now we have to do the work, but it's definitely there. It is possible for you. Okay, so how do I get out of the fog of love bombing? Yeah. So love bombing is an interesting dynamic. So I'm going to say a couple of things. One is I generally don't encourage us to point fingers. So in this case, though, it is the narcissist that is the problem, and we are the solution. So the only reason why love bombing works is because there's something within us that resonates with their toxicity. And that's a harsh reality, but it's the truth. So I may say some things that might trigger you, and I apologize in advance. And if it's something that triggers you, I would really encourage you write it down and ask yourself the tough question. What is it about this relationship or about me that feels the need for love bombing? And this is why they manipulate us with the love bombing. So my ex-husband, again from my experience, is when we were first dating, he would I worked on a Wednesday night into the early evening, and he had my apartment key at that point, and he would leave a rose in the apartment, and then my cousin lived in the same building, and then he would go out and hang out with her. And so I honestly didn't even think anything of it. It was really lovely. And it stopped at one point, and I didn't question it because that's not my love language. So although it was nice, it wasn't something that I needed. And so but I missed it, but I didn't miss it, if it makes sense. So they're going to say things, they're going to do things to manipulate you is what it comes down to make you feel like they do love you. And the reality is that narcissists do not know how to love healthily. They are master manipulators. They have psychological issues. And there's this gentleman that I follow on YouTube, and he's a narcissist, and he even tells you straight up, we'll never change, and they won't. So what is the part of you that feels the need to actually receive that love and those words or the actions that they give you? I'm going to turn it on you a little bit, because oftentimes it is when we're out of the relationship that will not work on, because the fog has been lifted, the veil has been brought back. You are now awakened to them and their behavior, and you will not tolerate it anymore. If you're still if the love bombing is still working for you, it's probably because there's still some resonance within you that maybe as a child you felt abandoned or rejected, or there's usually one of three things that you feel not good enough, not worthy, and not deserving of good things. And these three things resonate very deep in a lot of women, and these are big wounds. So we often seek it outside of ourselves. And when we seek it outside of ourselves, and we end up with these men that are unhealthy, they will give you what they think you want and need to lure you into their lair. And then they've got you. And when they've got you, then they can abuse you, unfortunately. Now, moving on is a little more challenging. And again, it's about your self-worth, your self-image, your identity. Are you a woman that is willing to tolerate and to accept crumbs? Because that's what they give us. Honestly, it is so little that they give us. I remember having so many cyclical arguments throughout my marriage and just wondering, like, what the heck? And then I would discuss it with my ex, and everything shifted for about a day. And then it went back to normal, which is not healthy and not loving and not kind and not giving me what I want and need. So there was this one particular day, we were out on the patio. I think I came back from yoga, and my ex is out there resting, as he often did. And we were chatting about something. We were still together at this time. And he said something to me, and I said, Elton, it's not my job to make you happy. And he said, yes, it is. And I said, no. And I've been doing enough personal development work to know that it's about us individually, and then we come together as partners. So I said, it's your job to make you happy. It's my job to make me happy. And together we come and we rise and we elevate each other and we challenge each other and we love each other. But it's two individual, happy, healthy people coming together. And he said, no, it's your job to make me happy. And I walked away from that conversation realizing right then and there that it will never change and that I was screwed. Basically, because he didn't see that it was his job to make me happy. It was just my job to make him happy. Because again, the narcissist has this way of looking at things where everything's about them, right? It's their needs, their wants that need to be met, and they don't know how to give back. They don't have the capacity to do it, unfortunately. So the way he treated me at the beginning of our relationship was all the things I wanted. Yeah, manners, gentleman behavior, romantic. When he has tried and succeeded to get me back in the past, he went back to this romantic behavior. Yep. Yeah, they're good. And in fairness to them, it is a psychological imbalance within their brain. So how conscious are they of these things? I don't know. I can't answer that question. They seem to know enough that I would say that they're fully aware of what's going on. So then the question is, then again, back to you, is why did those romantic gestures negate all the negative that he gave you? For me, it was about the 23 years of marriage. It was about a little bit about the girls, but the girls were 16 and 18 at the time. So it wasn't that. I was making the money. I was making the paying the bills. I was just the one also tolerating all the crap. And he was living a good life. So I there's a trauma bond and a trauma wound that we have. So it's usually coming from our childhood. And so here's the simplest way for me to explain it. Where we have an ego mind, we all have it. And the ego mind is the mammalian mind, so it's very historic, and it's based on fight, flight, and freeze. And we used to be in fear of the giant tiger that it had big teeth and were coming after you. Okay, you get my point. My mouth is scrambling today. And so now that same fight and flight is the fear, the guilt, the shame, the doubt, the worry, all of those things. And this is the manipulation piece that they come into play. Because one minute they're loving and kind and you're connected, and then the next minute you're not. And this teeter-tottering puts us in this state of what the hell, and we think we're crazy, and we don't really know what's going on and why it's going on and why it's happening and what we've done. Because as conscious people, we would then question, what have I done to encourage this? What have I done to attract this? What have I done to actually manifest this? And it's often, again, it's that those wounds of not good enough, not worthy, and not deserving. And it's also their unhealthiness. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, good. Now, how do we possibly trust again? Time is important. So give yourself some time. How long have you been out of the relationship? Not long. Okay. So I tapped into my own energy. It took me 4 years to get to a space where I was so in love with my life, myself, the way things were going, that I was willing to try online, because unfortunately, being on the island, there's limited relationships here, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to have a relationship with another Caribbean man. And so 4 years apart. Okay. But only 6 months. Okay. So it's, what have you done to help yourself heal? Have you done any counseling or any therapy of any sort? Oh, since you were 13. Wow, that's a long time. So the counseling is important. It's going to help you adjust your mindset, your thinking. It's going to give you some insights. And what I know for myself and for my clients is that a lot of time the missing piece is the removal of the energy of those subconscious thoughts of that I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I am not deserving of good things. So trust can be redeveloped, and it has to be within yourself first. So do you trust yourself? Yeah, and it's not easy because they've they've convinced us that we don't know what we're talking about, that we don't know, our own opinions don't matter, that we're not good enough, we're not, that it doesn't, what we say doesn't make sense. I mean, they really, we've got some programming that we have to release and let go of. So for trust, what I started to do was, it came with time and with practice. So honoring your word to yourself. So when you say you're going to do something, do you actually do it? Or do you allow yourself excuses and justifications and don't do it? So if you do that, then there are times when basically we can't trust ourselves because we don't stand up for ourselves. We don't back ourselves up. And so what I encourage you to do is, if you are in a group setting, let's say you're in a master class for 5 days and you've signed up for that master class for 5 days. And you know there are 2 days out of those five that you can't make because you've got something already planned. You give yourself the grace for those 2 days, but you make sure that you promise yourself you're going to watch those 2 days within that day and also show up throughout the program. It can be that simple because everything is a reflection of us. And if we are not showing up for ourselves in the free courses or anything, then we can't trust ourselves because we're not showing up for ourselves, if that makes sense. Yeah, so that'll change. I promise you that thinking of being with someone else will change. And you've been with the person since you were 13. That's a long time. And it's also your sort of your younger years. So it is something, not like a father figure, but it's like a best friend. That was the hardest part, is the not having him to have a conversation with. And it was a very strange experience for me because there were decisions that sometimes I made without him. A lot of them I made with him, even though I didn't always like his response or his his answer. And then I found myself having no one else to answer to but me. And that responsibility was a little scary because it's like, shit, it starts and stops with me. I don't have him backing me up anymore. I don't have, even though he didn't pay for things necessarily, it wasn't him that was making the big decisions, because at the end of the day, if we couldn't afford it, we couldn't afford it. That was, the money was the stopgap, right? So I was really shocked with that part of it. So be aware that that will come. So what's happening more likely than not is an identity shift. So now, who are you without this person? Right? So so when I started separating more from him, I got myself a coach, and I worked with her for 6 months. And by the end of that 6 months, there was this sense of nothing and no one has power over me, because I was loving on myself. I was taking care of myself. I had boundaries for the first time. I didn't even know what boundaries were. I had to look it up, and I still didn't understand what they were because I'd never had them. And then I had to step into my personal power. My personal power is as simple as this: when you say no, it's no. You don't need to justify, you don't need to explain, and you don't have to have them understand or get it. It's just a no. Or it's a yes, this is what I'm going to do. And again, with no justification, no need to explain, no need for them to get it. It's a yes or a no. And honoring that and being in that energy will also help build trust within yourself. The other activity that I would recommend is, so oftentimes we have this hell of a list every day of things that we've got to get done, and we often don't get them all done. And so what happens is that breaks down our inner trust, because again, we're not honoring our word. So what one of my coaches had taught us to do is allow yourself what we call a 10 out of 10 experience. So how this is built is that you are allowing yourself, let's say, you know for sure there's 3 things on that list that you have to absolutely get done, and you can. So you put those 3 things for the day or the week, and by the end of that day or the end of the week, you get those 3 things done, then it's done. Then you get 10 out of 10. If you do 2 out of 3, then it's 75%, 7 out of 10. But what then happens is that you roll it over to the next week, and then you add it to another 3 things. And then probably what will happen is only 2 of those will get done. And then it becomes this vicious cycle again of not trusting yourself. So put on that list only the things that you absolutely know you set yourself up for success, and you absolutely know that you're going to get it done. And it could be one thing, and it could be for the whole week. And then if you get other things done, great. You're not limited to the one, but it's the one that is non-negotiable. It's I'm getting this done no matter what. And then maybe you do that for a couple of weeks. You just have one thing on your list, and then let's say 2-3 weeks down the road, that gets comfortable, then you add another item on your list. So now you're going to do 2 in that week. And if you feel like your confidence is building and the trust is building and you feel like you could do 3, then do 3. But if you find yourself not doing the 3, then back down to the 2. Again, it's about success, setting ourselves up for success, not failure. We've had enough of feeling of failure when we're in a relationship. They make us feel like we're a failure. They make us feel like we haven't done anything and we don't do things right. And it's awful. Yeah. So boundaries are going to be so important. And honestly, I was sad for probably about a year and a half. But it was a deep sadness. So I allowed myself fun, allowed myself laughter, I allowed myself to create memories and to enjoy life in the sadness. But I was angry probably for a good year. I was sad for probably another year and a half. And then I allowed it just disappeared. I can't tell you why or when, it just did. And it's all time. Did you ever find it difficult to come to terms with your partner being someone else? Okay, so I don't know if he was with somebody else. He didn't ever cheat on me that I know of. So there was 2 6-month stints that the girls in Elton went to tennis camp for those 6 months. And in the first year, we had some challenges because he's used to being there all the time to be his backup and to be the focal of attention and to have somebody to rail against if something goes wrong. And for the first time in our marriage and with the girls, he was it because I wasn't there. And so he didn't like that at all. And at one point he said, well, I'm connecting with somebody or something like that. And I said, okay, well, that's nice, whatever floats your boat. Because at this point, things were not good. And so he didn't like that response. So then he left it and then he came back to it. And he said, well, I'm cheating on you or something like that with somebody, but it's not physically, it's just emotionally or some kind of nonsense. And it was a total manipulation factor. And at this point, I was pretty close to being done. And I'm like, well, that's nice. And he's like, well, and I said, listen, I if you want to be with that other person, I have always told you, do not cheat on me. Just tell me we're done, right? Now, narcissists won't do that because, again, it's a manipulation tactic. And he was totally trying to manipulate. And he didn't like my response. So the less you give them emotionally, that fuel will not be flamed. So they don't know how to react or be. So my ex-husband came in one day. I'm in my office. I'm at the computer, and he comes barreling down the hallway, and he's standing in the doorwell, and he starts yelling and cussing and swearing at me, and I just looked at him and went, yes. And he just looked at me. He was red in the face, and my ex-husband is a black man, so pictured like you could see the color change. And he is just fuming, and I don't even know what he was talking to me about because I blocked him at this point mentally, and what I would call is like Teflon. It just kind of bounced off me, and I just kind of giggled and went back to the computer because I wasn't going to tolerate that anymore. I had left the marriage. I didn't need to take that abuse anymore. So it didn't. And because of that, he didn't know what to do with it. And so the less you give them, the less you react, the more you stay in that personal power of, I know who I am. I don't deserve this. I'm okay. Everything's going to be okay. Nothing and no one has power over me unless I give it to them. I'm not giving it to them. And you stay in that energy, and that will shift things in a big way. They will allow you to go because you're no longer on that plane with them. And it'll get exhausting for them because now what do? They're fighting against somebody who one doesn't really care, but also beyond the fact that whether I care or not, I wasn't responding. I wasn't allowing myself to go into the fight. They will egg you to go into the fight because they want you to go into that red zone with them. So I had a coach that talked about this. She talked about green zone and red zone. And green zone is the happy, blissed out, everything's okay. And the red zone is the lower level energies, angry, hurt, sadness, all the heavier energies. And she said one day, she said, well, he's inviting you to go into the red zone, but you don't have to accept the invitation. And I went, what? What do you mean? And it was a shock to me because my family growing up, my mom and dad, constant bickering back and forth, and so that's what I grew up knowing. And I just assumed that that's how everything else was. And so, of course, I had to respond. He's insulting me. I have to respond. Actually, no, you don't. You have more personal power by not responding, not giving him the reaction that he wants, because this is the manipulation. And if you don't give them any fuel to be manipulated with, they've got nothing. Not easy. So I'm not saying it's easy, but you will get there. Okay. So if your partner is with somebody else, first of all, let me ask you this tough question. Do you still see him as your partner? Yeah. Okay. So this is the work that you're going to have to do. If you still see him and you together as partners, then again, it's an identity shift, right? So what I would really encourage is to sit within yourself when you have time. And if you journal, this would be great. If you don't journal, then just have these contemplative thoughts of who am I without him? Who am I? Period. And list out all your positive attributes because we forget and they beat us down so much and for so long that we don't even know that we have positive attributes to give and to offer. And that at the end of the day, we're a catch. And why wouldn't another man want that? I remember my ex and I got into some kind of fight, and he decided to leave the bed and go into the apartment and stay in the bedroom there. And he knew that that reaction would create abandonment issues within me, rejection issues within me, and that it would hurt me. And he did it on purpose because if you're in a healthy relationship, what I now know is that you don't go out of your way to hurt your partner. And so when he did that, it really set me off. And so I remember going back into the bedroom at one point, a couple days later, after I gave him his space, and and then talked to him, and him looking me straight in the face and saying things like, um, no one else will love you like I do, or no one else will love you, period. There was the way he made me feel was that I was unattractive, that I wasn't, I wasn't a catch, and that I'm lucky that I have him, is how he made me feel. And that's what he was going for. So often we have, again, this was a wound that I had to heal because I obviously had subconscious thoughts of that. So we are not attracting the not nice parts of them. And we are also resonating with those not nice parts of them. And it comes from the childhood. So there's codependency that's happening. We, somewhere along the lines, when they make you feel unworthy or not good enough or deserving of bad things, there's subconscious thought in our head that agrees with them. And when it agrees with them and we don't heal that part of us, then we will maybe in our next relationship also attract another narcissist. So this is the fear that I had. I didn't want to go through this again. So this is why I really did the work. So when we're going through these things, we just want to keep asking ourselves, what resonated with me? Okay, well, if I had felt like I was abandoned or rejected as a child, well, that makes sense, right? So again, so the ego mind wants to keep us safe. And being safe is being in our comfort zone. And when we're in our comfort zone, then it's something that we are used to. And when we would have that experience? Usually from childhood. Okay, so we want to now elevate what we think our comfort zone is. So for a long time, my comfort zone was frustration. And I would need to be frustrated in order for me to move. I would need to be frustrated in order for me to feel safe. I need to be frustrated in order to feel, I don't know, but it was a motivating factor. And one of the coaches that I was working with at this point said to me, well, why can't you let that go and then be addicted to maybe a good feeling, like being happy? I'm like, oh, because it's a choice? Yeah, it is. How empowering is that? A little scary because it's like, oh, damn, it's more in our control than we realize. And it is in our control. We get to choose. We get to say, okay, no more. This is the boundary that we put with ourselves. So I'm not going to allow myself to tolerate this from me or anybody else. I'm not going to allow myself to go out of my personal power and justify and explain and say no, but not mean no fully, like not standing firm in that no. And I'll get better. So you want to have compassion with yourself when you notice, because you'll notice now. You'll be like, oh, damn, I'm doing it again. And that's okay. So if you are feeling resonant with anything he's saying now, other than the love bombing, then keep reminding you of everything other than the love bombing. I'm in a group with narcissists, and couple of the ladies have a journal, and they have written down all the nasty things they have said, all the nasty things they have done, all the nasty things they have made us feel. And when they feel the need to go back and not block and have no contact, then they will remind themselves by going into that journal of who they really are, because that's who they're showing us who they are. So I met a gentleman a couple of months ago on the island. Nice guy, very attentive, seemed interested, and we had went out on a few dates. We went on this few dates, and I said to him, because he's telling me very emphatically that his focus is on his work and that he doesn't have a lot of time outside of work, and he's got goals that he wants to meet. I honor that, I respect that. So I asked him straight up, I said, so where does that leave a relationship? And he says, oh, well, if I want something, I'll go after it. But I didn't pay attention to those words, the way he said it. And so I'm like, okay, well, to me, that then meant, okay, he was going to be in it, but not for how long necessarily. And it took about 2 weeks of the pursuit. He got me, and then the tension started to wane, and the morning chats and the evening chat were barely there. Now there were times where he has to work through the night, sometimes with his overseas clients. So he was either sleeping early or whatever. That happens. But there was not necessarily an explanation the next day of, oh, I'm sorry, and this is why you couldn't get a hold of me or whatever. So I was starting to feel, maybe he's not really as committed to this, because to me, a relationship means something else. And then he said one time to me, oh, you've earned another date. And I'm like, earned. And I said, what's that supposed to mean? And he didn't say it. I don't know if he responded. I can't remember if he distracted me, but he was showing me who he was. We need to pay attention. People show us who they are. And oftentimes we want to see the good in them. We want to see, and again, the more research I do on narcissism, and not from their perspective, but from our perspective, is we want to fix them. We see the wounded side of them. So then this is where we justify and we explain away their behavior. And I could see, and I said to this new guy, I'm not doing that. So you tell me what's going on. I'm not assuming anything. I'm not presuming anything. I'm not going to justify your behavior. You're going to tell me what's going on. And then I'll decide if I'm going to stick around. And although he appreciated that, he didn't follow through on it. He wasn't capable of staying in that higher vibration and expectation. And that's okay. It took a couple weeks for me I would say a month or so, maybe even longer, because things were going really well. And we were having this really nice chat Monday night. Thursday morning, I heard from him after checking on him for a couple of days. He responded to my concern, and then he cut me off. And I gave him in my mind until Saturday to respond or to come back and have a conversation with me, tell me what's going on. He didn't. So I then responded to him and I said, listen, obviously you're not ready for a relationship. I don't know where your head is at. I don't like this the way I don't deserve to be treated this way. And that's it. And I was hoping he would come back, and he didn't. So he showed me who he was. And that's okay. And we've got to accept it. And I know now for myself that I am not, I'm trying to figure out the proper wording because it's not needing. I'm not desperate. I am very comfortable being by myself. I love who I am. I love my own time, my own energy, my life. But there is a part of me that is missing loving someone, and I'm no longer willing to tolerate crap and crumbs. So there's a part of us that have to come to that decision, and it might take some time, but it comes with loving yourself, with giving back to yourself, because if you're coming out of that relationship, you're probably pretty depleted. Because I know for me, I was exhausted. And I remember saying that to him all the time. You're exhausting. Because he was. He drained the hell out of me. And then he would get upset because I would have to go to bed early. Well, early was like 11 o'clock. But he snored beside me, sitting in a chair for 3 hours. And because he's had a little nap, he expects me now to be awake and to be available for him and be the wife. And it's like, well, sorry, you missed your chance. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. So there's probably some codependency, because if you feel like you're mummying him, or you're an FBI and you have to keep going behind him to see what he's doing because you don't trust him, these are pretty good clues that something's wrong. So that mummying energy is actually very masculine. So mothering energy is the desperate need to have some kind of control, and again, there's compassion being sent your way because we've been taught how to be because of them, right? So it's gonna, because you were 13, it's gonna take you a little bit longer to figure out what a healthy relationship is. So when you're ready, you'll know it. Trust that gut feeling and that intuition, and go on. I would encourage a lot of different dates, and maybe even start online first, so there's no contact, and then maybe go to contact if you're ready. But if you're not ready, there's nothing that is forcing you to move out and trust another man. It'll come. And if you're never ready, you're never ready. My mom was never ready, but she didn't do any of the healing work. And the healing work will really help you. And the more counseling you get. Now, be careful, because there'll be a time frame that probably counselor will start to say, maybe put a little pressure on you to say, oh, maybe it's time that you should go out and you should try to have a relationship and all this kind of stuff. You're not ready. You're not ready. That's all it is. And it's going to be a no. I'm not ready yet. And there's nothing wrong with you if you're not ready yet. Trust that gut feeling. Honor it. Because, like I said, it took me 4 years before I even started going online. Healing is priority. Yeah. Yeah, it's totally. And so what will happen is, with the healing process, you'll get to figure out who you are, figure out what you want, figure out where you want to go, figure out what's priority for you, what's your next steps. how do you want to be? Who do you want to be? Because I remember having this huge blowout fight with him one night and feeling just hating myself, not liking who I am, going to sleep feeling like that, and doing it in front of the girls because he always did that to add fuel to the fire in my relationship with them, to make me look bad. And so I decided that night I was no longer going to be that person. I didn't like who I was when I was doing that. It's not who I am. And so I just came to that conclusion and I allowed it to be okay. And so he would now, then this is the Teflon moment. He would then try to create a fight and get into my face and start accusing me of all sorts of things in front of the girls again. And I wouldn't bite. I wouldn't I wouldn't say anything. I wouldn't do anything. And to the point where actually a couple times, I don't know what my facial expression was, but he knew that if he didn't stop whatever he was saying, I was going to punch him in the arm. And because he said to me, "Don't you punch me." And so he knew at that point that he lost me. Now, they went away for 20 months and then they came back. And in the coming back, I didn't know who I was, if I had done enough healing, how I was going to be with him. And I was so grateful to know and that I was able to have my boundaries, that wasn't manipulated by him anymore, and I was able to say no and push back. And it felt really, really good. So I can promise you, although it takes time, and it doesn't have to take a lot of time. I don't say years and years and years. There was a lot of things going on in those 4 years before I was willing to look at possibility of dating another man. I was just enjoying life, having fun. I now protect my peace and my peace of mind. And most women coming out of a narcissistic relationship, that's the biggest thing, is they want peace. They just don't want to fight anymore. They don't want to have to argue and try to be the mother or the FBI to have to be on top of him and yeah, yeah. So fearing another narcissist, I understand that. And there's some really great men out there. There really are. And so I had this idea that I'm going to host a retreat at some point here in Nevis. And I'm going to invite some really good men to sit with us at the end, just to show us that there can be really good men out there. And they can be kind and loving and thoughtful and respectful and the whole 9 yards. And there's some really awful men out there. But it's the same with women. So I promise you that when we elevate our energy and our vibration and we do the healing bits and we remove a lot of these heavy energies out of our bodies, narcissists will not resonate with you anymore. They won't even come into your energetic field because they're down here, you're up here. There's no match. My ex-husband and I were literally that. I would speak, he could not hear me. Honestly, I would look at him and he's trying to hear me. I see that he's trying to hear me. He cannot hear me. It was the most bizarre experience ever. It's because I was here, he was here, and we were the two boats in the ocean that were just crossing paths. We could not hear each other. I could hear him, but I was up here, but he couldn't hear me. It was amazing. he would walk out of the room and come back in and go, "What did you just say?" I'm like, "Oh, no." So then I repeat myself. So we had two rental apartments. So this was the big argument that set everything off. And he asked me to mark on the calendar when we had rentals. So I did. Except he didn't go to the calendar because he probably forgot that he asked me to do that. And then in this fight, he said, I said this and whatever. And I said, yeah, but you told me to put it on the calendar. The calendar is there. Did you look at it? No. Well, too bad for you. But I have evidence now that I did the right thing. Right? So we're going to see, things are going to soften for you. I promise you that. Now, there are two more questions that came in for those who aren't live, and it was about guilt and shame. So I felt guilty for a while in leaving him when it first happened, and especially because of the girls. And I remember asking the girls what they wanted. And the girls said to me, Mom, although we don't want it to be forever, we want peace. You guys have been fighting a lot and you're bickering a lot, and we want peace and quiet. So I said, fine. So I kept with that. And unfortunately, and the day that he was supposed to leave the family home and go into one of the apartments, he said in front of me and the girls something about, well, your mother kicked me out and something. And I almost gave in. I almost gave in, even after what he had said and done and how he had done it that weekend. And my soul self said, no, he doesn't get a pass. His behavior was not okay. What he said to you was not okay. How he said it to you was not okay. Keep reminding yourself of that. Even if you have to put sticky notes all over your house and on your phone or notifications or something. Because what they do, how they make you feel is not okay. It is mean, it is nasty, it's manipulative, and it is exhausting. And you do not deserve it. I hope you hear that. So there can be a sense of responsibility for their well-being, and it can make it hard to leave without feeling guilty. And I encourage you to leave anyway in this situation. And sometimes there's a guilt, maybe from fear of retaliation or punishment from the narcissist as well. And if that's the case, then breathe through it, because they're going to make you uncomfortable no matter what, but protect your peace and build yourself back up, because they have literally torn you down. My ex-husband made me a shell of who I am. The amount of weight that I put on was a little scary at the end, because I was binge eating crap as a protective measure, and I didn't even make the connection. My hair was falling out in chunks because of the stress. And so it can take its physical toll on you, and it'll go from bad to worse quickly. So this is a matter of life and death in some ways. So keep that in mind. Just keep reminding yourself why you left, even if they're being nice to you. And so the hell what? They're being nice to you. You deserve to be treated nicely. But we're so not used to it that when we get it from them, we're almost like puppy dogs. They're like, oh yeah, please, master, rub me right there. Yeah. And I have to make light of it because it's a silly thing, but it's the truth. Unfortunately, sometimes we're like a sponge that is sitting there wanting the water, and we're getting little drips every once in a while. And we're just accepting of those drips, and we're just absorb it all up like it's the best thing since sliced bread, and we deserve so much more than that. We really do. And give it to yourself first. And then you will not look outside of yourself or need to look outside of yourself for anybody else to validate you, to love on you, to take care of you. You will be so strong in who you are. You will know what you need, what you want, and you're not going to tolerate anything less than that. And it's a beautiful space to be. And we don't need men. We don't. Especially now in this generation, we're more than capable. We're the ones who are rising. They're the ones who are falling. It's stunning. There's probably, it's an observation I've made over the last 10 years or so. I would say there's many of the relationships that I've known have fallen apart, but it's because the men just are lost and they don't know what they want and they don't know what they need, and they look outside of themselves, and so they're looking for another victim when they go to another person. They're using it, one, to manipulate you and to make you feel bad and to want them, and then two, that person is probably could become his next victim. It will not be peaches and cream. It may look like it on the outside because that's what he's going to show you. And it's not your responsibility to tell her. There's so many people out there where I've read where it's like, well, I want to tell her. She will not hear you. Stay out of it. It's not up to you anymore. Let him go. And if you have to have a relationship with him because you have children with him, then I encourage you to there's a shared parenting app where you don't have to talk to them directly. And all you have to do is communicate through text. And then that way they can't, oh, honey, how are you? How things are going? Because text has a different tone. And we're a little more capable, I think, of not falling for it when we don't hear the voice behind the text. There's a little more space and distance from it. And it's interesting though, because I can also feel vibes through the text, and they can't keep it up in the text, which is really interesting. So allow yourself to have that, and keep it as short and sweet as possible if you can't block him, and just keep protecting your peace and protecting yourself and your kids. Now, relationships with the kids, you gotta allow it because the courts have allowed it unless they're being abusive, and then you have to fight for the kids. But if that's not the case, then just allow them to have a relationship, and the kids will eventually see. They'll get tired of it, and they'll stop asking to be in his energy, his sphere, which is sad, and also the best thing for them. Right? So don't feel guilty or shame about that. Don't feel bad about that. Again, it's on them. And so when my youngest daughter and I severed ties, we were having this discussion, and I was bringing it to their attention how bad they made me feel around my birthday. And she said something to me which was very interesting. She basically said that she couldn't be loyal to him and me at the same time. That's how he made her feel. It's very sad. And I knew that I couldn't fight it. So I was like, okay, I can't fight you. This is your choice. You're 16, you don't see it yet, and I'm not putting you in the middle. He put them in the middle. He's pinned them against me. I'm not willing to do that. And hopefully at some stage, with maybe some distance and time from him, they will start to see and be able to feel comfortable enough to actually want a relationship with me. But in the meantime, allow them to have a relationship with him if it's not, if they're okay with it, if they feel safe enough. And he may not manipulate them, or they see through it. And so he doesn't feel like he can, right? So kids are pretty astute. And unfortunately, my girls were tied to him because he was their tennis coach as well. So there was another layer with their relationship with him. So it was very intertwined. Okay. So guilt is going to follow because narcissists don't take kindly to being rejected or abandoned. And how can anyone not want them? So remember, their egos are really big. And the fact that you are the one probably who initiated the relationship not being there anymore, they're going to come out fighting and make you feel bad and make you feel guilty, and then they're going to be mean and all the other things. So the one thing, my ex-husband called me, they were in Toronto, and he called me about something, and I'm on the phone, and I'm so used to listening to him and doing the right thing, being a good girl, being a nice girl, being all the things that I'm supposed to be doing. So I'm listening, and then I had a thought, I don't have to listen to this anymore. We're not together. Click. And then he calls back and he leaves this big long rant. And so because my house phone was also my business phone, I had to pick up the message to see if it was a client. And it wasn't a client, it was him ranting and raving, like full on F word this, F word that, like rant and rant and rant. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I don't have to listen to that. And I disconnected it. The call again. I thought, I like this. So we don't have to be the nice girl anymore. We don't owe them anything anymore. It doesn't mean we were disrespectful or unkind, but as a human being, not as your lover, not as your partner, not as your spouse. That's gone. That's done. So now you're a man, I'm a woman, we have children together. We have to figure out how to work that, and that's it. I owe you nothing. You're going to be disrespectful to me, click. Disrespectful to me, I walk away. Disrespectful to me, I just look at you and glare. Takes their power away. It's like kids. Kids will push your limits, and they will try and they will try and they will say all sorts of things. I remember my girls at 2 and 3 years old saying to me, but I won't be your friend, because they couldn't get something. And it's so ironic because both of them said it at the same age, and I don't think either of them were in the room when each other said it. And I just cracked up laughing when the youngest had said it because I'm like, damn, you both have the same playbook. What's going on? Where'd you learn that from? But that's how they get what they want, and they're figuring out how to manipulate and how to maneuver us to get what we want, right? Or get what they want. So they're the same thing. Honestly, they're man child is what it comes down to. I said that more than often than not. They are small, but they could have done okay. They do. They see. Yeah. Yeah. And them not showing up will definitely, they'll come to resent that and be bitter with it. Um, and they'll need to process through that. Messy and vengeful right now. Yeah. Yeah. And so if you can do that parenting app, it'll probably take out the messy and the vengeful, at least the steam coming from him to you, and you can just walk away from the text message. You don't have to read it. There's nothing that says you have to read it. Why read it? Why even indulge it? Just like I didn't have to listen to the message on the machine or the call in the first place. I don't owe him anything. I have given my life to him for 23 plus years. You have given your life to him for 20 plus years. The only thing you owe him is to be civil. And that's more for your children's sake and your peace of mind. Because it's not who you are to be mean and cruel and vengeful and vindictive and all the things. Okay? So just hold your ground. Stay in your personal power. Know who you are and that you're not willing to tolerate anymore. Okay, let me just make sure there was a question. Make sure I drop. So shame was also one that came up. So there's this notion that because we're smart, intelligent, loving, kind women, that we should have known better. And the truth is, like I said before, it's more about our childhood and from how we were raised, how we were treated, how we were made to feel. And if it's those one of three again, then guilt or the not good enough, not worthy, and not deserving. If you've got any of those that resonate, it's probably why we have allowed the relationship in the first place. And I will often ask my ex's family, because they no longer talk to him, if he was always like this. And they will say no. So he's gotten worse with years and time. He wasn't always like this. It was probably less often and less frequent, and definitely less bitter and angry and vengeful and hurtful and all the things. As soon as he realized we weren't together anymore, it seemed to give him permission. It was like a go sign. I can hate on her as much as I want because I don't have to love her anymore to get what I want and benefit. Sadly, but that's the way I saw it. Okay. So not repeating where we've been is by healing us, working on us, making sure that we do the work so that we don't resonate with their toxicity anymore. And it's usually one of those three wounds. I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving, fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, one of those five. But usually the fear of abandonment and fear of rejection is usually based on those first three. And I want you to be aware that a lot of times these things are filtered through the child's mind. So if you, somewhere along your path as a child, usually before the age of 7, had a trauma, or your parents made you feel not good enough, or not worthy, or not deserving, or made you think that way, that's through the filter of a child's mind. So it's not necessary that it was the case, but that's the filter, that's the perspective that we had as a child. So therefore it became our truth. Then we looked for evidence of it. And then once we got evidence that backed it up, then it became a belief. And a belief is just a habit of thought. And most of our beliefs are not right. So we have to question our beliefs. So is it true that you deserve to be treated this way? Is it true that you asked for it? Is it true that you deserve to be manipulated, to be talked badly about, to be made feel like you're less than? And if you've answered yes to any of those questions, then you really do need to get into some assistance, whether it's coaching or therapy, because all of those answers should be a hell no. So when he says something to you that makes you question yourself, ask yourself, is it true? Is it really true? Is it really true? And be honest with yourself. But most of the time I would tell you it's probably not true. Because he's not filtering things through a healthy mind. There are psychological issues within him. He's an unhealthy, wounded man. So how can what he says be true at all? It's not coming from a loving space. You're very welcome. Any other questions before we finish? Oh, well, so his mental health? No, not unless he gets psychiatry. And most of them don't even admit that they have issues because they're too much in their ego mind. And even this guy that I follow, he works with a psychiatrist, and he will even tell you they will not change. He says, I'm better, but I have to constantly work on myself because there's something not quite right up there. I haven't figured what the reason is, because to me it seems like an epidemic in North American men. And the reason why I say that is because I've been in circles where European women are, what is narcissism? So I don't know. And then we go to describe it and they're like, oh, I don't know. I don't think I know anybody like that, which is shocking. So I don't know if they're just really fortunate, if they just don't resonate with it, so it's not in their purview, or what. But yeah, the first time I ever heard it, I was talking to a friend online, and we were sharing some different things about our day and our life, and she's the first one who brought it up to me about gaslighting and narcissism. And I'm like, what the hell is that? I've never heard of the word. And then it was another couple of years before I broke through. And honestly, if he hadn't done what he done that weekend, I probably always still be with him. Because for me, marriage was supposed to be forever. It was a religious thing. It was a bit of a cultural thing. It was just, and now I see that if it's unhealthy, it's not supposed to be forever. And that's okay. Come to terms with that. Okay. So if you have any further questions, if you're in my group, then you can leave them in my group. If you're not in my group, then DM me and then I can send you the link. And if you are wanting to go further with this, I have a 3-month program. I'm calling it Rise from the Ashes, because we're a phoenix rising from the ashes. And we're going to start the week of the 20th, and probably the Thursday. I haven't looked at my calendar to know. It's going to be $3,200 for the 3 months. And we're going to do the energy work to remove all these heavy energies and all this crap from our physical, energetic, and cellular bodies, because it gets locked in at the cellular level. And this is why we can get sick and get conditions, illnesses, and diseases, because it starts to break us down with all the stress. And we're in constant survival mode and fight through most, if not all, the relationships. And it has a cumulative effect and not a good way. And then we're going to do the mindset work as well, which is helping you see where your thought process isn't quite aligning to healthy and not quite aligning to getting you what you want, which is to be on that other side of healing, and to be able to see where those beliefs are that we're running the subconscious show, like that not good enough, not worthy, not deserving, healing all the patterns of those, as well as healing the rejected and the abandonment issues, because those are two that run really deep and strong in a lot of women. Also, the rejection bit is really, we do almost anything to not feel rejected as well. It's one of the biggest ones. So we'll really focus on that. And then we focus also on what we actually want. What do we want our life to look like? And how amazing it can be on the other side of healing. And painting that picture and starting to create it, because it's in our power. It really is. Life outside of them is amazing. It'll get better with time, and it can get better faster when you're working with other people. And then we'll also do the self-love, self-trust, self-worth, deservedness, confidence. All of that will come into play along the way. It's going to be in a group setting. It's going to be with other women. So it's going to create an amazing sisterhood, so that we can all rise and have a community of women that we have support from each other. There'll be energy, like I said, the energy for sure. I haven't quite decided if we're going to do two. I'll probably, depending on who joins, it might be easier to do like an hour and a half once a week versus like 1 hour sessions. So I'll feel into that with whoever joins, and we go from there. So if you have any questions with that, then you can just message me and I'll let you know on the exact date that we're going to start. So have a blessed day. Know that everything's going to be okay. You are going to get better. This is a mantra that was mine for a very long time. I kept reminding myself, everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. Everything is going to be okay. Didn't always believe it. Didn't always feel it in the moment. But at the end of the day, it's true. Everything's going to be okay. You're very welcome. And if you know anybody who needs to hear this, you're welcome to share it with them or maybe connect me with them and then I'll give them the link once I put it up on YouTube. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for showing up for you. Thanks for showing up for those that are going to be listening to the replay so that they've got some great insights into what's possible. And let's thrive on the other side of this, not just survive. I hate that term. I hate survival. We're survived throughout the entire relationship. Now it's time to thrive. Have a blessed day. Take care. Bye. Bye, Marilyn.